Hi guys, welcome to the channel. Today we're here to talk about the big news that Microsoft has basically given its shareholders a vote in December to see whether or not they are going to start holding some Bitcoin. So this is an interesting one. So currently Microsoft holds about 76 billion in government treasury bonds or bonds in the market currently each year, with the whole aim that these give it additional liquidity in the background and allow it to be mobile in changing market conditions. So basically it's to hedge risk, and what sort of come up is it hasn't been outpacing inflation, so the bonds that they're holding aren't proving to be particularly useful in the current environment at outpacing inflation. So it's come to the shareholders to say whether or not that Bitcoin should be bought by Microsoft as a hedge for inflation or added to its cash reserves. Now, this is an interesting question because the shareholders of Microsoft have said that they don't actually believe it should be, that they've been considering it themselves. Well for them. But as someone who holds Microsoft and holds Bitcoin, it's quite interesting to me that this would happen. And in terms of what it could actually mean for the price of Bitcoin, I'd be very interested to know what someone like Microsoft starting to buy a small proportion of their assets per year would do for the price overall. To allow the shareholders to vote on Bitcoin in December, the motion has been sent to the Securities and Exchange Commission that it intends to put this up as a topic of investing into Bitcoin, and its shareholder meeting, which is scheduled for the 9th of December. The reason for this appears to be that MicroStrategy, Michael Saylor's company, added Bitcoin to its balance sheet in 2020, and as a result of that, and using leverage, as we've shown on the channel before, he's actually outpaced Nvidia as the top performing stock in the S&P 500. So it is definitely a topic of conversation. Now, the interesting thing here is that the Microsoft board strongly opposed this motion. So they've said that they do not want to invest in Bitcoin. They don't actually believe it's a good idea, and that they think where it's a hedge against inflation, it's just not something that they should be doing. Comes into an interesting thing. It's quite an idealistic point of view. So I think there's a portion of this article here which actually states that Bitcoin price has increased by 99.7% over the past year as of June 2025, outperforming corporate bonds by an estimated 94%. And it's also specifically mentioned that MicroStrategy has had its stock outperform Microsoft's stock this year by 313%, despite only having the fraction of the business Microsoft has. So this is very interesting because basically the value of Bitcoin sitting on the balance sheet, if it were to increase, would massively increase the stock price that Microsoft has, and the amount of money Microsoft has the ability to massively increase the price of Bitcoin, much more than the price of bonds. But what's very interesting coming from this is that Microsoft is outright saying that its shareholders should not do it. So basically they're saying that they do not want people to vote at all for Bitcoin on the balance sheet. They say that they're monitoring this themselves. Again, this is the joy of having shareholders, is that people get a vote. So I get a vote, and I know what I'll be voting for. I'll definitely be voting to buy it. But we'll see. I think Bill Gates has substantially more shares than me, so his opinion is probably more important than mine right now. So let's maybe talk through why this is kind of important. So this comes into another idea that Michael Saylor had kind of said, that Bitcoin, whether you like it or not, is an instrument which is replacing a large amount of financial money in the back of the system. Now, whether that's day-to-day currency or just a hold of value, it is starting to take up a larger amount of market cap. And in holding that amount of value, its value is now increasing. So if you hold it on your balance sheet, in theory, if it were to go exponentially higher, then your balance sheet would go higher without actually the need for the business day-to-day working. So if Microsoft was to buy Bitcoin and Bitcoin was to go parabolic without selling any more technology or any more of its products, which I have no doubt it will anyway, actually Microsoft's balance sheet will be stronger than ever because of its holdings in Bitcoin. Currently, MicroStrategy, to my knowledge, are one of the only companies doing this. in terms of the ETFs that came out, companies like BlackRock and Fidelity also now hold huge amounts of Bitcoin. So this is where for me it gets interesting. So Bitcoin is a fixed circulation, and the fact that there's only 21 million available Bitcoins ever. I think Satoshi Nakamoto's wallet's meant to have like 1 million of them, so it's 20 million floating around, and then you've got how many have been lost by people who didn't have the technology or cold wallets at the start. So the circulating supply of Bitcoin is actually not that big in terms of even the 21 million available. And the ETFs have been buying in large amounts of it because they have to hold it in order for the ETF to be valid. So BlackRock, Fidelity, players like this hold a large amount of the circulating supply, which means there's not that much supply circulating anymore. So if a company like Microsoft was to buy in Bitcoin, and it even was a small proportion of what it was to buy, so you take the example of their bond holdings, there are about 75 billion. Usually they go between 75 billion to 100 and something billion. If even a portion of that was to continue to go into the Bitcoin price and remove it from the market so that it sits on Bitcoin's balance sheet, basically what you've got is a bunch of institutions that are now propping up the price so that it can be far less volatile to movements up and down. So when people talk about the whales, and in this case the whales would be people with large amounts of wallets who hold it themselves, that'll start to be dwarfed by the institutional holdings on this. So this up and down cycle of a whale selling actually is probably going to start looking a lot more like this. But the price will continue to go higher. And so what I would assume on this one is not only if Microsoft were to buy this, would it be good for Microsoft, because number one, they're the first in to do this, but number two, if they start doing it, it's likely actually much more large companies will start doing this as well. At that point then, what people have been talking about in the Bitcoin price world for years, and people thought they were mad, actually will probably ring true. And so this thing will become a hedge against inflation and a store of value. People will buy in for additional amounts of this store of value to sit on their balance sheets to keep them liquid, or to allow them to have holdings that mean they're not bearing any financial risk. And then if it continues to go up in price, that as a result could be one of the biggest drivers of performance and shareholder value for CEOs going forward. So it's very interesting that Microsoft have taken the stance that they are recommending that people don't do this. I've seen a lot of stuff on the forums underneath saying that regardless of that, they're going to vote for it anyway. Like I say, I think I have 5 shares overall in Microsoft and a bit of Bitcoin, but in my opinion, the best way to drive both of their share price up is to vote for it in this case. So I am going to vote yes on the vote, and we'll see what happens. But I think from what I can see, the internet's divided, but anyone who holds this and believes in Bitcoin as a technology is definitely going to be voting yes on this one. It'll be interesting to see what some of the bigger holders of Microsoft think. But sure, watch this space. BlackRock didn't think there would be any interest whatsoever in the Bitcoin ETF, and they're finding that when they offer it to their high net worth clients, it's been going off the charts, and it's their most popular fund by far. So I think more people are invested in this than mainstream media would let you believe. It would be interesting to know how long it would take Microsoft to refloat this proposal if they vote no, because this is kind of seismic, and you'd imagine people will now be starting to look at this at a board level, especially after MicroStrategy's success, to see, is this a way to massively increase our shareholder value? So let me know what you think, guys. Are you going to be voting for it? Do you think it's going to go ahead? I'd love to know your opinion. I'd really like to know if more people think this is going to go. If you have any questions or anything like that, leave me in the comments down below. And if you like the content, please do like and subscribe. It makes a massive difference for the channel, guys.